All right, well, hitting the road. No more lights. There we go.
Okay.
We are here for this episode of the AVB Podcast in St. Catharines, Ontario with Geoff Farnsworth, fine artist painter. Thanks for inviting us out to your studio, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for walking all the way up here.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. First of all, the building's beautiful. Coming in here is beautiful. I was introduced to you by Jai. I can never remember Jai's last name, but Jai from Road Waves. We had reached out to him, told him that we were coming to town, and asked who we might reach out to. And you were the first name he gave us.
Oh, cool.
And since then, because I do know some of the other musicians in the area, the guys from My Son the Hurricane, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Wicked.
They have all reached out. Dano was talking tremendous amounts about you. And
really?
and they didn't need to, because the second I saw your painting, I was fascinated.
Oh, thanks, man.
So tell me, let's get started with you the same way we start with everybody. Tell me about, I want to start right from your childhood. I want to hear about the house that you grew up in. What was your family like, parents, siblings, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So I'm from BC, from out west, and my dad was
What part?
Mostly North Vancouver, but that was when I was 7.
Okay.
So I was born in Kimberley, so in the Kootenays.
Okay.
So it's a place, the town square has a cuckoo clock kind of thing. Guy comes out with a big red nose and a stein of beer and lederhosen. So it was like a ski hill. They got a wicked ski hill there, and the mine's all done now. But
Is that done for real, or is there a bit of like sarcasm to it?
I think the life of the mine ended ages ago, but
I mean, like the beer stein guy and like all of that
yeah,
stuff.
it's got a strong kind of German element.
Yeah?
And, yeah. So,
Okay, so it's for real.
Yeah.
Like it's like an homage to home kind of thing for a lot of them.
Yeah, I think that the last time we went back as teenagers just to check it out because I hadn't been back in years, and we went and all the fire hydrants were painted like people. And everything. So it's got a cool kind of tourist kind of element with the skiing.
I noticed that when I was out west too. I don't remember where, but I think it was like BC. They do that, right? Like the fire hydrants turn into like these art pieces all over.
Maybe
the place.
like in Victoria or something like that.
I've never been to Victoria, but like I've seen it like in northern Ontario. I've only been out that way once, but I have seen that before. So you were there until you were 7?
Well, we moved around a lot because my dad was in mining, so it was a lot of kind of small places in Northwest Territories.
What kind of mining did Dad do?
It was like gold and molybdenum and that kind of stuff. And then he got a head office job in Vancouver, so we moved to North Vancouver, and that was the family home up until a couple of years ago.
So tell me what it's like living in Vancouver, growing up in Vancouver. Everybody coming from Windsor, and I'm sure you guys have the same phenomenon here. A bunch of people go out there. They usually end up coming back. So what was it like being a kid growing up there?
It was good. I mean, I guess it was pretty idyllic of a childhood and a lot. Like, the high school I went to, you're looking up at the lions and mountains and there's ocean. So it's, but I think living out there and being raised, you just take all that beauty for granted. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's beautiful here in a whole new different way. But I was just kind of sequestered away out west, and I didn't really find an art interest. I was always kind of good at art in high school and kind of before that, and my mom was always kind of pushing me that way, and I guess I kind of rebelled and went to business school because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Really?
Yeah, I know everyone laughs because I have no like business kind of sense, So it's like, did that, and then it was sort of like an early midlife crisis. I was like 27, and I just kind of went to ask someone to marry me and found out she was kind of with someone else too, and it kind of crushed me, and I came back.
Dude, tell me that story if you don't mind. I want to hear that story.
Oh, okay. I was just I had a long distance relationship, and it was a girlfriend in Mexico, and I was just kind of in love and went traveling after graduating from university.
How'd you connect with her in the first place?
It was kind of, she was up here. She was coming up on a ESL kind of program.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of first woman I was in love with, that kind of
Gotcha.
thing. And just that was kind of, I think just looking for, I had started it was business and was in sales for a couple of years, which wasn't me, food sales. Right. And I think it was looking for answers, and and it was good because it was kind of this break that got me to come home and figure, I just knew I didn't want to do that anymore.
I want to, if you don't mind, and if you do mind, we'll skip through, but I kind of want to hear like the story. I want to hear you finding it, you going down, I want to hear that entire thing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I just went down, I brought a ring and was there, and it was just I went down with a friend who had gotten together because they had come up and visited, and so he was starting to see her friend, and went down, and it was just kind of.
And you went down with the expectations that you were going to ask her to marry you.
Yeah, I mean, I was young, and I was jumping into things too fast anyway, so it was just kind of me getting spun around.
Yeah.
And I came back, and I just didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. I just changed my airplane ticket to come back a day early because I was living in Victoria at the time, but I didn't know anyone in Victoria. It was the job. I was switched over there to handle the island and so forth. And so, I was there not knowing why. I just wanted to come back, see my family a little bit. And I just knew, I'm like, fuck, that's it. I'm not going to do sales anymore. It's not my thing.
It just took, the whole thing took you on a spin.
Yeah, it took me on a spin. And my mom had always pushed me into art anyway. My sister was younger than me, year younger at school, and she was a wicked artist, went to fine arts after. So I thought, maybe I'll kind of find something in the middle. So I took a year off, built a portfolio, moved back home with my folks for a tiny bit. And then I got into the graphic design program in North Vancouver, which is a wicked program.
Right.
But I was so into the life drawing, and there was a teacher there, Geoff, a wicked painter, awesome dude. And I just loved the life drawing, and the first year really kicked ass for me. I really loved it, and getting into the painting. And then the computer stuff started coming in more, so I didn't want to do that. He used to take the third years that were finishing the program to New York City for a trip to go look at art and all of that. And so he knew I was starting to look around for a place to just go paint, and he suggested, why don't you go to the Art Students League, which is in New York. He'd take people there. So 8 months later, I was living in New York City and going to this place, which was cool because it was all like this atelier kind of system I love, because I love the Impressionists.
I don't know what that is, so tell me what that is.
Oh yeah, so it's just like the Impressionists in France at the time, and Monet and Degas and all those kind of guys. There was a kind of system that the academy, and then a lot of these kind of guys, kind of master painters, would open up their studio and they teach that way, and so they'd make some money while they're also painting. So they'd maybe come around a couple days a week and check in with the students, but they'd be set up and just working from a model a lot of the time. So they'd have a model posing, maybe clothed or nude, that sort of thing. So a lot of the classes at the league where I went were kind of like that. As a foreign student, you'd enroll full time, and then 5 days a week just be in there painting from a model full time. And the teacher would come around a couple days a week, work a couple other classes at night. So I started doing that. I was at that time I thought I was a mature student, 27, 29, and now I'm like, wow, that's so young. But I just, but I had a little bit of life experience, and I just was, after a couple years of doing that, I wanted to just paint my own stuff.
Right.
I wanted to paint my own stuff. But when you're on a foreign student visa, you have to sign in and out.
Right.
You got to seriously be like at the school. A lot of people are kind of wanting to just go to the city and float around, go to CBGBs and all that. I was only in CBGBs once, and I was so drunk I didn't.
At least you got into the original before they turned it into whatever it is now. I think it's like a clothing store.
I don't even know what it looks like though.
It doesn't exist now.
Some Swedish friend of mine, she was leading me around the city, and I was so drunk and I was in there. I didn't know till the next day I was in CBGBs, and unfortunately I didn't even get into music then. I was just into the, I didn't know the Strokes were coming out at the same time.
What year were you in New York?
97 to 2002.
Oh, so you were there through some. So you were there through 9/11 and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I was actually. Yeah.
Okay, I want to get to all of that, but I have one sort of question before that. You said early on your mom tried to push you into art.
Yeah, she always thought I had some talent in it, and she kind of pushed me that way, which is
how so though? Like what were the ways that she would encourage you that way?
Well, I think I'm pretty lazy by nature, and so I didn't.
Of course you are. We're artists.
Yeah, exactly. So that was it. I don't know. I just wasn't that, like, I enjoyed it when I was doing it, but it wasn't a big passion.
Was it a thing that sort of just absorbed? Were there things that you got absorbed into as a kid?
I loved music, but I was never a musician. So okay. I always admire musicians so much. I have a lot of friends that are musicians. And it was sort of like I was good at printmaking and drawing when I got into it. And so, she said, she said, you know, Geoff, I'm not going to push you anymore. You don't want, so I didn't even go to art class in like grade 11 and 12 or 12 anyway. And she said, I'm not going to push you anymore. And then I remember there was this one time business school, and there was a poster we needed for a group project.
Right.
And I was the one, you know, I said, hey, I can do the drawing side. I forget what I was drawing, a big eagle or something. I forget why. And I don't know. And then it was just, it was enough in me, I think, that it was kind of a go-to when I was thinking about what I wanted to do.
Gotcha.
Because I was just like, my mom said, hey, we'll get you a career counselor.
Did it always did art kind of float for you in the background? Like were you a doodler? Were you a guy like?
Well, my mom was always kind of in a little bit, sort of part-time, and my sister went to art school after.
What did your mom do for a living?
She did a little bit of secretarial work, but was pretty much a stay-home mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
And art was sort of her thing that she
was always into a bunch of cool stuff, but it was sort of more kind of part-time and here and there. And she was kind of into some of the spiritual stuff and meditation type group stuff, and you know, art. And both my dad and my mom. My dad's they've taken a lot of art classes kind of part-time.
So dad's artsy too?
Yeah, and he was into photography.
Okay.
Really good photographer, you know, without being professional or anything.
Sure.
And so it was kind of like that. And they were always like, even when I was building a portfolio to get into art school, we'd go to life drawing classes together and all of that, all of us. And
so it was encouraged the entire time.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those battles where you had to like fight it. It was almost the opposite for you. It was thrust on you and you had to...
there were times, of course, they want you to be able to make money and that kind of thing,
right,
which is hard in art.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were definitely, my mom was definitely pushing me more that way. So they were super supportive about it all.
Did you, whereabouts, because your style, we talked about this a little bit off camera, but your style is very distinct. How far along into your career did you kind of come into your style?
What was more new, so when I went to New York, I liked the Impressionists, but I liked these kind of realists that had an Impressionist sort of a bit of an abstract kind of slant. But it was mostly pretty realism. And then I was in these figure classes and, you know, working for models. Then I wanted to stay in the city more, but I didn't really, I thought at the time I didn't want to go to school anymore. I just wanted to be able to stay and work in a studio and build my own body of work. But luckily I had to keep going to the school to stay in the city. So to have more room, you were more cramped in these classes where you had a model and sort of, I went down to the abstract classes and there was a lot of room to spill out. And I was lucky because I was in a class there was Frank O'Kane and William Scharf. Okay. And I was in William Scharf's class quite a bit, and he had been a protege to one of the New York abstract expressionists, so a guy named Mark Rothko. So he was Mark Rothko's studio assistant. Mark Rothko was, he was kind of a protege in a younger generation to this. So he was hanging out with all those guys, like Pollock and that kind of stuff. So all of that kind of abstract expressionist stuff would come in, but he'd let me do whatever I want. So I was taking photos of friends, you know, getting lighting, getting good photos of heads, but I was also doing this sort of strange kind of existentialist kind of stuff where I was taking kind of doll parts and toys and then kind of making these pictures. So it would be like, say it was your head, but you got a doll body and you're driving a car. But they were painted really with earthy colors and kind of really realistically, but this surreal element. So I was doing that for a bit, but then
where did that come from? Do you have any, do you know where that, how you started picking up on stuff like that?
I guess I've always been a bit of, you know, I've always been into a little bit of meditation, that kind of stuff, and the searching, kind of questioning stuff. So I think anything surreal and the surrealists and anything a little off has always kind of caught my eye. You know? So, you know, like Salvador Dali would have been my first favorite painter and all of that kind of stuff. So I was kind of geared that way anyway. And then there was an artist, there's like for figurative artists, people that like that and students, there's like a real light, a guy named Odd Nerdrum, who's this Norwegian dude, and he's an amazing painter and paints from life. And he has a lot of sort of angst, kind of, he'll paint these barren landscapes that he'll go to Iceland and paint these landscapes, and he's painting from life, and it's a lot of people kind of missing limbs and digging and burying other people, and really impressive. And since one of the galleries that shows him is Forum Gallery in Manhattan, which was just literally a 10-minute walk from the school I went to, because it's all like just right south of Central Park, so I could go to the gallery and see his work in person, because it's such a big difference between, you know, seeing the art and seeing pieces. So I was really inspired by him too. So my work was kind of going that way. I was even starting to think of going and painting in his studio, and which you could do. You could just apparently show up there and like maybe you'd model for him some of the time and help, but you could start to learn to paint and be there. I was starting to think of doing that, and I even met him because he was a couple times at the gallery and talked at our school, and yeah, it was kind of a funny story because once he had a show and I was looking at a lot of his paintings, and he had one painting, he painted these self-portraits, and he was this sort of odd but impressive guy, and he'd wear this cloak and have this sort of like rock star kind of thing. But he had one self-portrait that was so impressively painted, but an odd subject matter because he had raised the cloak and he's painting himself standing there with an erection. And I'm looking at the painting, like all the paintings, but I'm finally looking at this one, and I feel this someone looking at me, and I turn around, it's the artist looking at me.
Oh, wow.
Which was so bizarre because you could have thought of so many things to say, but at the time I was just kind of speechless.
Yeah.
Could ask like, how long can you hold a pose for? Like, you know. But I didn't know what to say, and I got to talk to him a couple times. But he was like kind of one of my gods.
Did you get a little starstruck there?
Yeah, I was a little starstruck. Yeah,
we talk about it on the show a lot of times because we deal with a lot of artists who end up like musicians who end up like facing their heroes and stuff.
Yeah,
and we call it about turning it off the fanboy.
Yeah.
Were you able to do that?
Well, I nodded. I just kind of nodded, and he had a glint in his eye, and so it was kind of embarrassing, but really cool at the same time. But I got to talk to him another time about his painting, which was really cool.
Especially kind of and I'm going to apologize up front because everything I'm about to say is taking out of my pure imagination. I have no actual knowledge of the scene or whatever, but I assume, because like when I think of fine art, like fine art, yeah. When I think of like high end, like haute couture, like that kind of shit, the people that are involved in that, I can't in my head imagine spending more than 30 seconds with them.
Yeah, like I feel that I just feel awkward a lot of the time. Like
yeah,
I'm supposed to say something within a parameter that fits with, you know, I'm not a schmoozer much. I don't go to many of the.
That was kind of my question. Did you find yourself in those situations where you were with those? Because you don't come off as one of those like like hoity-toity kind of like artsy-fartsy types.
I like hanging out with the artists and the outcasts, you know, like that kind of thing. And
yeah.
The musicians and, but I mean, a lot of the gallery people are really good too. It's just it can be awkward at times, or trying to present yourself. You know, I'm not really geared for that for the most part. I like doing the work. I love being in environments where I feel kind of comfortable, you know, some of the people that you love,
right?
That kind of thing. But yeah, I kind of feel the same way as you a lot, you know.
But you've had that opportunity to be in rooms like that.
Well, yeah, it's cool down there. I mean, that's the great thing. What was so great about going to school there, one of the many things was just being able to be in these places where you can like be in front of a Rembrandt or a Vermeer's and see the art, which you can do, you know, you can go to the AGO and everything here too, but there's just so much of it going on there at that level. So yeah, it was great. And then even this teacher, that the fact that he had been with all these abstract expressionists and that kind of thing was amazing. And just there's so many people from all over the world there. I was hanging out mostly with these strange Swedish surrealist painters, all the time, these kind of guys into all of this philosophy that I'd never heard about in films I'd never heard about. So it was just kind of hanging out with them a lot and going to art class and then going on these long walks and smoking a joint and then watching these strange movies, you know. And so that was as much as of an education for me too.
What did you pull from that?
I think embracing the unknown a lot. I think that sort of living that sort of more surrealist path, a little more like genuinely wanting to find and seek it, and then getting the sort of skills and having the fluidity and being subjected to so many different styles and talent levels and being able to feed off that, and just being in a place for 5 years where it could wander around and you know end up in the Met and be looking at these amazing shows. And then this teacher too, he would let me. So he came from this abstract expressionist realm. He would let me do what I wanted to do. So I was taking my photos and I was painting in this way. But he'd kind of hop on your boat. He'd go with you where you're going. And he'd just say, well, what about this? Or what about thinking about color for that? Or what about if you turn the painting upside down, forget about the subject matter, and you're just thinking about it as abstract? So I'd still be battling with the figurative, but he'd be kind of, you know, asking me questions about what would happen if you did this. So that's where like color and process and abstraction started really coming into my pieces. But then, you know, I always have kept love for kind of like portraiture and form and this kind of stuff.
Do you think you were a good student?
I think I was. I think that with me, a lot of the time, I really get into working intensely. So I think some of the time my concentration and pushing something, that I have that, but then I can really be a loafer and a dreamer and float and not. Like, you know, some of the time I'm assuring people, other artists I talk to, I'm like, I'm not as productive as you think, or I'm not always painting,
right?
You know, because I'm really not. Like, there were a couple summers ago, I basically, it almost feels like I just lay on my sofa and all over town reading these Murakami novels. But I think that's good education too.
Right.
It's too bad we feel so guilty most of the time. But
it's actually a really interesting question, because you make your full-time living doing this, right?
I do, yeah, maybe 2/3 of it, and then 1/3 of it I'm teaching part-time at the college. Yeah.
So how long in the process, because this is, I mean, even just personally is with the podcast, it's been something I've struggled with, but like,
yeah, for sure.
What do you do to sort of like lay your days out and lay your path out so that you know you're not just laying around and lounging and wasting your time on the couch?
Well, I do a lot of kind of floating around, loafing about and trying to get to work, but then I don't know, I do a lot of work too. I'm really unstructured.
Yeah.
And I'm always wanting to be more structured, and I get, you know, so I'll go.
That was actually my next question. I was gonna, because if you do the unstructured thing,
yeah,
have you gotten to a point where you're just okay with being unstructured, or you still fight it the entire time?
I think somehow I got way too much of a guilt complex.
It sucks, eh?
It does suck, because I think we're just fucking like beating ourselves up all the time.
You spend all the time that you have not, like, and now I'm talking a little personally, but like, you know, all the time when you're absorbed into your work, you're so absorbed in the work, there's nothing else that can ever come. And then the second that you put it away and you have some time to think about other stuff, all you do is spend your time thinking about how lazy you are not doing all the fucking work you're not doing.
Yeah, it sounds like it's nice. It's nice to be with other artists and realize you go through a lot of the same stuff.
Right.
But there is you know, some people are more kind of 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
I like having a lot of freedom in my day. I like the fact that maybe I did float off and not too much, and then I could be up super late working. Like, I'm probably the most irregular sleeper, because I mean, a lot of people may consistently go to bed really late, but I may go to bed at 6, right after dinner sometimes, and just read.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so I'm all over the place a little bit, but I like that kind of trying to float and just, you know, let meaning come into things.
It's a whole different mindset, I think, especially in the society that we come up.
Yeah.
It's really it's so funny that you brought it up, because it's been something I've been absorbed with for the last 3 or 4 months, is just that entire mentality.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you know, just when you're sitting there and like, you know, I'll wake up, because I'm kind of the same way. George and I were talking about this on the way up here. I like not knowing, like today I might wake up at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But tomorrow I might be up at 3 a.m. And then I might be up at 3 a.m. and be up until 5 o'clock the next afternoon or something, and then sleep for 12 hours. You know what I mean? But I like that. I like having my life. And I mean, I've got a wife and kids and all that other stupid shit that you got. I've got 2 girls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've got 2 girls and my wife. And, you know, my daughter's a 15-year-old and 11-year-old. So you got all the...
I've got an 11-year-old.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
So, you know, all of that life stuff to deal with and kind of... But then at the same time, just kind of being able to go, I don't have a 9 to 5. And like, when my daughter, because I used to drive a truck. I drove a truck up until a year ago. And when I quit truck driving, it wasn't like I came into the house and was like, well, all right, family, I'm now no longer a truck driver. We just kind of like, I came home one day and was like, well, we're going to do this and whatever. And we just kind of, and then one day about 2 months in, my oldest daughter looked at me and went, what do you do? And I looked at her and I went, I fuck around professionally for a living. And it was the best feeling ever.
To have that play, that ability to play and not be like, are we meant to be? Like, I understand good quality comes out of putting in the work, but I think some of the time we can just be making widget after widget without raising our level. But I think some of the time to let kind of floating with life and the philosophy and thought and being a dreamer, and wider experience. I don't know. I find that really useful. Like it's a fertilizer too. So shouldn't feel so guilty so much of the time. And it sounds like, you do the hard work too.
Right.
I mean, go in real modes of work where you're
Sure.
pushing through a lot. But I don't know. There's something about, I don't think our society's set up for us to be living in a way for great happiness or for us to, our society isn't set up obviously in a way for us to all manifest our dreams.
Well, and that's the
For us
thing.
to
It's
be-
we live under a system, and systems are built for like a general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not for
exactly.
specific.
Yeah.
And but it's funny because one of the other thoughts I've had about this is that I think for the general public, if you handed them a life of the kind of life that we're talking about we want,
Yeah.
if you handed them that life, they'd fall off a fucking cliff.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like I can relate to that too. I remember I had a job and I was working at a wine store and I actually loved it. It didn't pay enough and I couldn't keep doing it. But what I loved about it is when I had to go to work, I'm like, oh, now I don't have this feeling of I have to do my stuff. I mean, I love what I do and I love it, but there's this strange kind of fear thing you're always battling. And I think so many artists, their whole sense of self-worth gets wrapped up in what they do.
Yeah.
A friend reminds me of this some of the time too. And she just, I really believe that kind of quality, so much of her self-worth is wrapped up in doing it. So to start, you expect something good to come out of it. You expect, so it's hard to get to that level of just play, but some of the time the best thing is just to play and not care.
Oh,
like
it's
I'll
not
mix
even-
paint that I
yeah.
like and just throw it around. But it's sometimes hard to get back to that. 'Cause
Well,
it
it's
doesn't
funny
feel
because
serious.
the only reason even some of this stuff kind of popped up into my consciousness is because like from time to time I'll take on a side job or whatever where I've got to do something,
Yeah.
and I started noticing like after 3 or 4 times I'd come home at the end of the day of doing a side job and be like, I'm not exhausted, but I'm okay with not working on anything else today because I have done my job for the day.
Doesn't it feel like it
And
gives you a
then-
break?
Yeah,
somehow?
and then I
Yeah.
started looking at it going, but today's the day that I need to work harder than every other day because I wasted most of my time doing the stupid thing that I really don't care about, but because it came with a paycheck,
Yeah.
now suddenly it's okay to let everything else go. It's
Yeah.
it's a weird
No, it's true.
just sort
Yeah.
of switch. So
Yeah.
you've experienced all of that same
Oh yeah, I
shit too.
experienced that a lot, and it's hard to get to an answer with it because I love what I do and I love doing it, but there's all of these little paradoxes too.
Right.
So I think it's just a big philosophical mindfuck that we're wrapped up in, and the system, we live in an unhealthy system overall if you think of how things could be and if everybody was encouraged to, but we make the best we can do with it. So I don't know, like it can be really hard, of course. We all know being an artist, and I like what you say. There's that side, like a lot of people. Yeah, how do you deal with it? So maybe it's easier to have a more structured life to fit
Right.
into. So it sounds like we can both relate to that too. But I know if doing it all over again, it's hard. But I'd still do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm
That's
at that point too, where it's like I look back at the road that I came down. It's like going through it. I didn't want any piece of it at all, but now that I'm here, I'm really glad I had to kind of go through it. I've only speaking specifically about being an artist. I remember wanting to be a quote whatever it means, a quote unquote artist as a kid. Like I remember being interested in art and all of that stuff. But I learned, somebody said to me, or I did some reading or something, but the idea of you can't really be an artist until you have some real life experience behind you. That got into my head early enough that it discouraged me from trying to really do anything with art until I was much later in life.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah, like
How old were you?
I messed around with a lot of stuff, right? Like I when I was a kid, I was a musician, I was a drummer in punk rock bands. But then
Oh, you guys both drummers.
Yeah. Well, George is multidisciplined. He's tremendously talented. I now play guitar and I do some singing as well. But like at the time, I'd like to draw a little bit, but I had no connection to the art world, so I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
I liked music, but my parents weren't musicians, so I had no connection to it. And then like when I got in high school, I found a group of guys that were like, well, we have a band and here's a drum kit. All right, punk
That's
rock.
awesome, yeah.
I don't need to know how to do anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, cool.
Yeah.
But then I moved my way away from that and got into photography because photography for me was, well, at least with photography, I don't have to have any experience. I can just document what's happening in front of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time, right? I'm 41 now, and I picked up a guitar and started singing for the first time 4 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so now I've been involved in art and everything my entire life, but I didn't think of myself as an artist. I thought about myself as a person who hung around with a bunch of artists. It's only been the last couple of years that I went, no, you're one of them.
I think that's the best way to live too, is hanging out with people that you're into their interests.
Yeah.
You know, but I really felt I didn't, through high school, really have strong, you know, I love music, but I wasn't a musician, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like with my daughter, I'm just always kind of like, you know, get into what you're interested in, let yourself make friends that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see your kids having that kind
Is she an
of hard
artist?
time with that. She really loves drawing and cooking and dancing and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice to see, although she loves slime videos, making slime so much too. I'm buying so much glue.
Oh my
I know,
God.
I'm like, oh, I'd rather be spending this money buying you know, something else like
We did the
paints.
borax thing for a little while too, until
Yeah.
we found out that was acidic on their hands and shit.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
also like contact solution is expensive.
It's crazy.
Glue. I'm buying 3 liters of glue because I'll save money.
Do you do it with her?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I
But
hate
I'll
that
play
shit.
with it like
Right.
after. But
Oh, I
I'm
hate
around.
it.
Yeah.
I
I'm
can't even
just
stand
like,
the texture of my kids. We had Tupperware containers full
oh, I
of
know.
this shit.
Yeah.
Uh,
She's making tons. So now she's playing ukulele a bit, and she goes back and forth playing stuff. But I'm always hoping she will become more, because, you know. But I don't want to push it too hard. I don't want to push her too much. But I also like, oh, I wish I had learned to play drums when I was a kid. Like,
Does it give you any perspective on conversations you had with your mom as a kid?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, that whole, I mean, that's where I also feel like I don't want to push too hard, you know,
Yeah.
because I also feel like I didn't really get into the art thing till I was 27, like hardcore, you know, sort of more like really going for it.
Right.
So 20, you know, but, you know, then I got a friend and his son's this genius piano player and he's been playing it since a kid. So I always like, you know, I kind of wish I had done that,
Right.
but it's easy to, you know, I don't really want to be that parent pushing my kids to make them live the life that I wish I don't want to do that.
Right.
But I want to be as encouraging as I can be and just, you know, have the love and the support there. But
When
yeah,
she
it's
comes,
tricky.
because I'm guessing she doesn't live with you full time.
No, yeah, she's more with her mom.
Right. But
yeah.
when she comes into the studio, is it just like, you know, whatever, I'm here, or like, is this a thing to her?
Well, she's into drawing, and I used to love we draw together, but she'd always think, you know, for quite a while, she'd think, oh, I'm wrecking her drawing. Want me to help with it? But we've collaborated on a couple pieces too, where she's come in. And so even a piece I finish up and show and like that kind of thing, she was kind of doing some of the stuff. And so I like melding different styles anyway. So it could be like I'll do childlike kind of drawings and then mix it with something kind of more realistic.
Right.
But yeah, she, like, to her it's all no big deal. She's usually sick of me like trying to get her involved, or I paint her a ton, especially right now.
Right.
But a lot of the time I'm taking photos. We'll be at a Chinese restaurant and like I'm trying to get, can you do this? And she's just taking the salt shaker and covering her face, or going like this. So I actually have done quite a few paintings of that.
That's great.
So yeah, for her it's not a big deal. Like she thinks it's cool. Like once I had a show at a restaurant here, Wicked Rise Above Wicked Vegan restaurant near this donut store.
Nice.
And so I had a ton of paintings there because a friend owns the place. And she came in, and she's usually so cavalier and doesn't really care about it. But she came in, there was not a painting of her up, and she was like, "How come there's no painting of her?" So there's some mix.
Yeah,
but she's
yeah.
kind of a cool cucumber too. So
You said
she
she's 11?
yeah, same age as your youngest.
Have you had any conversations with her about the figures, like the nude stuff?
No, I don't. Just not too much.
The only reason I ask is because
most of the time I'm painting most of the time it's clothed figures.
Yeah.
Lately, but yeah, she isn't. We're starting to do something here at my place, me and a couple other people, and because we just love working from life, so we do have some nude models coming up and working that way, and so we can split the cost because you want to pay like $20 an hour, but
Sure.
you know, to pay $60 on your own.
Right.
So we're kind of doing that, but yeah, she's not really around that so much. But
No, the only reason I ask is because, like, I remember I didn't do much nude work as a photographer, but I did do one series that was nude work.
yeah.
And my oldest daughter now was like 3 or 4 years old, and it wasn't even a question to me. And it wasn't a question until later we were like talking about it, going like, is that all right? Because I was sitting there working on these images, and my 3-year-old was on my lap.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, a lot of people, and afterwards sort of thought about it, but to me it was always just like, I'm exposing her to art. Like there's nothing,
Yeah,
there's
I
no
think it's
porn.
really,
There's,
yeah.
it's not pornographic. It's art and it's life and it's, especially with her being a girl.
Yeah.
I don't want her to think of women as nothing but figures, obviously, but I want her to also understand that you can be
Be who you
you
are.
can be who you are, and you can be
Yeah.
part of art, and your body isn't something to be ashamed of.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
100%. I
Yeah.
feel the same way, and I find the environments like teaching at the college when we have models that are nude or working with them. It's just and then there's a drop-in life drawing Tuesday night thing just up the street here downtown, and it's usually just a really good environment. Like people are so, I mean, if you have decent artists, they're just so appreciative of having a good model because that you're just, and there's usually a good kind of friendship and a kind of rapport, and it feels more like a collaboration.
Right.
We're working from a model now, and it's just, to have a model that gives such good poses and that you get a person's personality in it and their essence and their energy. So yeah, I think it's a really healthy environment. I mean, it sucks when you have the odd person some of the time who doesn't show respect, and you gotta like fucking get them out of there right away or reprimand them.
Do you have you seen shit?
Yeah,
like
there's been that sort of thing before. I mean, you can get that occasionally with first years, like in college.
Oh, because
But
now it's,
usually
yeah.
they're just awkward though.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to explain that a little bit.
Right.
Most, like 99% of the time, it's all really good. And
Right.
It's a positive experience. But you gotta be. I mean, somebody who's bearing themselves like that, you have to respect that.
There's vulnerability
You have to
there for
protect
sure.
them. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's a part of holding a class or holding an environment like that.
It's interesting to me because as a photographer, there would always be these things, and like you still do them, like they'll do classes or whatever, and you'll all go out to somewhere and we'll take photos, or you go to some place will hold a bird and you'll take the pictures, and you'll do the still life, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
As a developing artist or whatever, as a photographer coming up, whenever I saw those things, I just shook my head. Like I didn't want to be standing next to some other asshole with a camera taking the same picture I was taking.
Huh.
Do you have any of that sort of same experience in painting, or is there more?
There can be
Because
that.
it's more personal.
See what you say. Like if you're having one person posing and you're all kind of painting
Yeah.
close to the same pose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that used to feel more like a classroom setup, which can
Okay.
be different than your own work. But I find, if we have a model, and then most of the time when I'm painting, it's kind of on my own. I'm using photography more, or some of the time working on my own. Then having a few people together, I find you can still get. It's interesting because we have three painters that are really different from each other painting right now together, but everybody's approach is 100%, like just so different.
Yeah.
Level of realism or abstraction, how they approach.
I mean, that is nice because at the end of the day, it's not like where cameras are all going to produce the same kind of work. You guys are all like individually making decisions as you're going along.
True.
Like that can happen in the editing with photography, but you're still
Yeah.
working off of the same base, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess even photographers can do such different work too. So even that, I find a lot of the time too, if I'm capturing like a drawing or a painting or something too. I mean, for me, then I'm kind of working in a lot of abstraction and maybe kind of some of my kind of sketchbook kind of drawing stuff where it's getting really surreal or something over there, kind of working with a mirror reflection and building a landscape that's totally out of my head. So like even if we're starting from the same figure, it could go different ways. Or you end up with some drawings from it. You're working from the drawings, and then it takes another leap. So yeah, I find it works out well. I just kind of want to get back to working from life more. Like I love working from photos,
right?
But there's just something like if I'm drawing you now and it's from like a photo, you can just zoom in and sort of see exactly how it is. But from life, you're kind of forced to take more chances and I don't know. There's a real energy, like you're three-dimensional or beyond that, and there's an energy and I guess you capture that with photography too, but there's just something for painting. I like it.
For me, shooting models was always, and honestly, it's half the reason I got out of photography is because I didn't see a point to it anymore. Like I'm one more asshole asking the pretty girl to take her clothes off. Like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have a why are we doing this kind of thing. But for me, the one thing that I did really enjoy about the photography is that it was such a one-on-one process. It was a collaborative process between myself and the model. Like we would talk about what we're doing, make some changes. That's kind of like the one thing that that throws me whenever I think about the classic sort of still life, nude model in a classroom. Obviously, I refer back to any movie or TV that I saw this stuff,
Yeah.
and there's no interaction there. There's almost like there's you never see any interaction between the artist and the model. The model just kind of comes in the room,
that's
gets naked.
interesting.
But
Yeah.
is that how it goes, or do you guys actually spend time? Like,
no,
are you?
I find most of the people I paint, and most of the people I like, if you look, most of my paintings over the last couple of years, most of them are friends, and most of them would be clothed anyway. So it's kind of not very few kind of nude figures.
Right.
But I love getting back to that because there's just something so. Something in the energy and the training and being that life drawing is just such a love for it and trying to capture that whole thing. But a lot of the time, the people I'm painting, it might be someone who's really young or female or older and male, or somebody who has kind of sort of classical beauty and someone who has a beauty that's not sort of in glossy magazines and that kind of thing. So I find it's kind of all over the place for me. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if this is a fair question, but even kind of going backward to what I was talking about, why I stopped photography. Why do you do it?
I guess it's that kind of thing we're talking to, where it can be hard to start it, but once you're into it, I feel I really do feel more balanced when I'm painting.
Yeah.
I feel it's so plastic and open, like it can go anywhere. Like even if I'm just painting you, it could be really realistic, the whole thing, or I can get this one. Most of the time I'm putting down brush strokes or scraping something, grabbing a big scraper and scraping it. I'm kind of thinking there's going to be more layers after, but you get something there's just sort of this harmonious whole, and maybe the movement of it, and this sort of balance of, oh fuck, I'll just keep that, or I'll tweak this little part of it, and it's just the creative growing of it, and it's so open. I can do anything. I can make you super abstract, or I can paint you in purples or super realistic tones, or have one eye, knock the other eye out and just make it a circle, or like carve some of the head and have rabbits jumping. I can do anything.
Do you have any sort of like perspective on your decision making process through all of that?
I try. Well, I guess it's a real mix. Like there's plan. There's like, I'm going to work with you, or a photograph I took of my kid or a friend. And there's, I want to work at this camp. But most of the time I kind of jump in. I'm interested in one part. Right. But I think it's a lot of just gut reactions. And when you've done something so long, you're pretty good at blocking in a shadow shape here. And I struggle like hell with drawing all the time. But then you get enough of these sort of movements going. It's just, I guess when you've done a little bit of it, you can be more open to these little hunches. Like even while your hand's moving, it's like, oh, bing, and just kind of listening to that, that some of the time it gets to that place where I know it's the same with music and for you guys, and I'm sure with filming, but that kind of, and editing, but that kind of feeling where it feels like the product, what you're working on, is collaborating with you.
Gotcha.
So I don't know what that is, if that's some other part of the universe, or it's that deeper unconscious side of you that's talking about. I think that's what a lot of surrealism is about. It's like screwy, fantastic looking, but really they're talking about a bigger dimension of the world and the universe we live in. Because it's a mysterious world. Like you look at quantum mechanics and like little tiny particle pieces that are at two places at once, and so the world's like magic, and we live in this mundane drone society, but it's not, so I think when we do these fucked up crazy things, we're often just more in the world than normal. So
that's interesting.
So that, I guess that's where a lot of it is, but it's like I think like talking about it or trying to do an art statement or something is bullshit most of the time, because it's sort of like, it's not really, that's like you sitting down,
I'm so
and
glad
taking
you
your brain and
Yeah.
moving it around a piece of paper, but that's not what you're working with
Right.
most of the time. That's the small part, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, most of the time I don't know what I'm doing. Like it's just, but doing it, but then when you're not doing it, you're doing it a lot of the time even better, because you're going somewhere else and pulling that back. So I don't know, it's just.
Talk to me about some of the most interesting projects you've worked on. And interesting is a very umbrella term. You can take that to mean however you want.
Now I'm like, what have I done that's interesting? I'm not sure. Nothing's coming.
Well, your paintings have found their ways into some fun places, right? You're connected with some musicians and that kind of thing. Talk to me about some of the places your paintings have ended up.
Yeah, well, yeah, I like some of the. A lot of the time they're going to galleries, and then I don't know where they're going.
Oh, okay.
So they get sold, and I get my cut, and I don't know where they are. So it's kind of neat some of the time to see where they go. Like, well, I love like the side of working with musicians. So I've worked with quite a few musicians. A lot of the time it's friends, and they're musicians. I'm just like I get to know from being downtown, part of the art scene, and which there's a ton around here in Niagara.
Yeah.
It's a really wicked scene, and there's a lot of energy, and there's so many good bands. And
Has it been like that for a long time?
I've been in Niagara for 11 years. So like from New York City, I moved up to Toronto, was there for 5 years, and then I met a woman, and we had a baby on the way, so we moved to Thunder Bay because she had family up there. We only ended up staying for 10 months, kind of followed her sister down and bought a house for a bit, and was there. So I've only been here for 11 years, and then it was more the Falls. The Falls and St. Catharines are really different.
Okay.
You know, but the whole region is pretty connected, but it's also, so St. Catharines has really been taken off over the last, like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years, or 6 or 7 years, something like that. So it's got a really rejuvenated downtown, which is wicked awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, a lot of it happened. There's a place called Mate Cafe, and a lot of people just really meet there, and there's a lot of wicked musicians and artists, and a lot of people doing all sorts of things kind of meet there. And then the Performing Arts Center went up across the street. They got a really cool film house, an art film house. There's the NAC, the Niagara Artist Center, that really gets a lot happening around here and pulls artists together. And yeah, there's just a lot happening right down. Oh, and then there's Brock University that's up on the hill.
Right.
But I don't know how many years now, 3 years ago, I guess, all of the arts, so performing arts and the visual arts and music and everything moved down here. So it's all on St. Paul.
They
so
just
it's got
did
a really
that. They just did that at St. Clair. They moved all of their arts programs downtown into Windsor.
In Windsor?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
oh,
they just
isn't
did
it the
recently.
best thing? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great because it brings in a bunch of new people. Now all we needed in Windsor is for more businesses to start cropping up so that you can actually see the, that rejuvenation.
Yeah,
but I think we've got
venues.
all the steps there, yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's just so, like, you just walk downtown, you don't, you know a lot of people, and there's stuff happening, and, and then you're still close. I mean, here we're still, traffic gets worse and worse, but be able to head into Toronto, and Buffalo's cool and has some stuff going on. So I think the region is awesome. So projects for me, like, I feel one of the best things I did was move downtown here. Like, I got a soft spot for the Falls,
right,
and all of that. It's sort of a different city though, because they've tried to get a rejuvenation of the downtown there, and it's a big battle because nobody, I think, on Clifton Hill, with all the power and the tourism and the hotels and the casino, nobody wants.
They don't want to see it sucked out of there. Yeah,
they're not going to stop anyone going to Niagara on the Lake,
right?
Because that's like a natural, and all the beauty with that. But it's a bit of a battle, and there's cool stuff going on in the Falls anyway. Right. But it's so close, and there's a dialogue here, but it's just like downtown.
It's funny because you're right next to Niagara. You're what? It's like a 5-minute drive from the Falls here or something like that, or
yeah, maybe like 20.
Okay,
20 minutes.
Yeah. So, it's like 5 minutes from when we get closer, because we're going closer to Niagara.
Yeah,
we're further out now.
But close.
Yeah, you're so close to it. But the region is interesting that way, right? Because like most of the people that come to this area skip by all of this shit and just go to the big tourist trap,
that's the
right?
thing. Yeah, so anyone who comes to visit from far away, you got to take them there, and it's actually amazing when you get by the falls, and it's all the bullshit behind the hotel. I mean, but the falls itself is amazing. That water, it's entrancing. But there's all these other places. I always take, and then it's nice to go downstream a bit and go down the wooden staircase and go down the gorge. But then one of the other things, I don't know, most people don't know, Port Colborne, there's something called the Shrinking Mill. There's all these other little hidden gems.
Okay, what's the Shrinking Mill?
So there's this, you heard of the Magnetic Hills on the East Coast? I've never seen.
Okay, I have, and it's a tourist attraction. Like, it's nonsense. Like it's.
Really?
Yeah, like it's. Is this the thing that you go into certain rooms that?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is like because you can have natural occurring optical illusions.
Oh, okay.
So
this is something different than
it looks. I don't know how it would be with the incline of the road and something about the land terrain around it. So what is actually say a
Oh yeah,
decline.
they're optical illusions. That's
Yeah.
where that's what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah,
But
and
it doesn't. So this one, it's like you're driving.
it looks like water's rolling uphill and stuff
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
I've never
okay.
seen that.
Yeah.
But here you go to Port Colborne, and you're driving towards this mill,
Right.
this grain mill. That's kind of there's a road, and then it angles off, and there's a little incline. It's a lot of it has to do, I guess, with the canopy of trees.
Okay.
And the space that changes from the canopy of trees to the mill. So as you drive towards it, it looks like it's getting further away or
that's
shrinking.
cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm always like, yeah, I'll take you to the falls, but I'm like, we're going to the shrinking mill.
That's all. Do you get the same effect in the winter without the trees?
Yeah, it seems to.
Really?
I'm supposed to go there soon with a friend, so I gotta check it out.
Might have to.
Check
how far
it
away
out.
from
But I've
here is
gone
it?
in winter. It would be like maybe 40 minutes from here.
Might have to check that out.
Oh
That
yeah.
sounds awesome.
Yeah. You
That
should.
sounds awesome.
It's cool. So you're just doing it, and then you want to. You end up doing it like 4 times or something. You're just driving back. And
Just to
driving
keep
around.
watching it happen.
Yeah. So yeah, bring Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. Put that on,
That's awesome.
It's actually really cool. It's kind of subtle, like it's not CGI stuff. But,
Right.
Yeah.
You're so close to so many of the major North American hubs, right? Because you're so close to Toronto, which
Yeah.
is for Canada. That's where everything ends up, whether you want it to be or not.
True.
And you're like 4 hours from New York, which you already have a base at because you went to school there and you know people. And
Yeah, I
stuff.
haven't been back much at all over
Oh,
the
no?
last year. I found ever since I had a kid,
Yeah.
my kind of traveling, I don't know, I just got into this sort of more, I mean, I still have ended up there a little bit and gone to other places, but yeah, I got to get down there.
But do you draw off of that? Like, do you draw off of those networks that are available to you in this area? You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be an artist, you're pretty close to the places you want to do that.
Yeah, like, I mean, I take art to Toronto and show it there, so that's nice and close.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've shown in New York and all that. It's been a little while, but it's nice to have it close. I love going down to Buffalo kind of for music more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Good
they got
music scene
some-
there?
Yeah, and they got some great venues. The last year was a year of me going to these venues I've never been to, both in Toronto and around here in Buffalo, that are really cool. Like Annie DeFranco saved a church from being demolished.
Nice.
It's called Babeville, and I guess she's got a record label there, but it's a wicked venue.
Wow. Okay.
So that's in Buffalo, and
Sweet.
there's Art Park, and I guess that's a little downriver. There's Art Park. I had never been to Art Park, and then I went and saw Jack White at Art Park, and I saw the B-52s, and I'd never been all this time. Most people around here have been to Art Park,
Right.
Yeah, so
That's
awesome.
awesome.
I'd never been to Massey Hall, living in Toronto 5 years.
Really? Yeah. See, and I've never been to Massey either. I've been into
closed now
the
for a
mods,
couple years.
the
Oh, the Mod Club? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
On College. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd only been there once. I saw a band called Holy Fuck that has the drummer, or had a bunch of different drummers come in, but the drummer from Cowboy Junkies, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Or is it the guy?
I was just
Maybe
talking
I'm
about the
thinking
Cowboy Junkies recently, and George and I were talking about the Cowboy
Or no,
Junkies.
Blue
Rodeo?
Now I'm getting a bit screwed up, but this wicked animal, just a
Gotcha.
beast of a drummer.
Oh, okay.
But that's the only time I've been in
Who's
Mod Club.
who's the Blue Rodeo drummer, George? You don't know him? One of the Mr. Chill, Kelly Hoppy, one of the original Blue Rodeo members, is from Windsor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm getting it.
they come down there. They come down there quite often, but
Yeah, Massey Hall is closed now.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's
Saw Matt Mays there, East Coast rocker.
Oh,
was really
yeah?
wicked.
How
it
was
great.
that?
Oh, it was awesome.
When was that?
I don't know, like 3 months ago or something. Maybe.
Is it just closed recently?
Yeah, because they're doing renos.
Oh, it's
Or,
not shut.
fixing it up.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought it
shut
was like
down.
closed.
Oh no, like I
okay.
think it's closed for 2 years now. Or,
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So they're doing like major renovations to it.
Yeah.
How's the music scene here in Niagara? Or
It's
in
great.
St. Catharines? Sorry, I keep flipping.
Yeah,
where we're
it's
at.
wicked. Like there's so many great young music. I mean, you.
Oh well, yeah.
Lights
I
on the
just asked that. We're
Hurricane.
bringing
You're
most
gonna
of
go
them.
See Anthony
Yeah.
Sweet today.
I was sort of thinking because I'm confused about our travel plan, so I was sort of thinking we were in Niagara right now, not St. Catharines. But yeah, the music
Yeah.
here, the music in St.
Well,
Catharines.
it's all mixed up. Like the
Yeah.
whole Niagara, it is. There might be some people more living in the falls. but
Right.
There's so much. When I
There-
say there's a separation, it's just there's the two centers, the two cities, but
Yeah.
the artists are all over.
They're the
place.
reason. I mean, they're the reason that the city was like the first choice for us to come here when we did this tour, because we've had a bunch of, just by weird coincidence, like My Son the Hurricane, Pindles, Fat Moth.
Oh yeah, these guys
You
are
know,
all watched.
all of these guys have all been on the show and have all come down to Windsor, and it was funny. It was like after the third or fourth one.
Oh, they
like,
were all down in Windsor.
They've all been down to be on the
okay.
show, yeah. So, and that's why I was like, hey, we got to figure something out up there because half the bands from the city have been on the show, so we should probably go up and visit the city.
Oh, that's wicked.
So,
man.
yeah,
Oh,
so
okay. So
that's
they're
what
all
got us
coming
here.
down that way.
Yeah.
Fat Moth is something I'm doing some album art for them too, but they're super cool guys. Super nice
Yeah.
guys.
Well, and I don't know, is Emily still with them with Fat Moth?
Emily
Fleury.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
she's still with them, and we're going to be shooting Moonfox while we're here too.
Oh
So
yeah,
other
she's
than-
really cool too.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's actually, we were painting her also. She was in, that was based on her. It doesn't look like her at all. My drawings were, but they're all somewhere. But yeah, there's so many people here are wrapped up all over.
That's awesome.
Like between music and
Really
the
connected
art.
scene here.
She
eh?
does really great drawings, and
Oh, I
there's,
didn't realize
there's
she
so
did that
much
too.
talent in Niagara. I'd love to go on about so much more of it. It's
Right.
just like, yeah.
The
I always
scene
wonder,
seems-
like, is there that many great musicians an hour out of Toronto every direction? Like, it seems phenomenal if there was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know I've spent a lot of time talking about Windsor being this sort of secret cultural hub for almost
Yeah.
all of North America, because there's some weird stories when you start learning about
Oh, yeah.
radio and the radio history of Windsor and being a border town and all of that other stuff.
Yeah, and
But you
Detroit
basically
right there.
you basically have the same thing here, right?
Yeah.
Border town,
Yeah.
everything else, right? So it's I don't
you
know.
had all like Motown right across the river and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Well, and they used to. I only found this out recently, but like the people who used to run the major rock stations, even out of Detroit, when they would select their records to play on air, the way they would select them is there were dances at Windsor high schools, and they would bring over all the new releases and they would play them. And when the kids freaked out on one, that would be the next one that
that's
would
so cool.
come out
That was
on
the
the
barometer.
yeah.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
really, really interesting city that way. And it sort of feels to me in the conversations that I've had with the bands and stuff that we were just talking about. Now, again with you, it seems like this area's got almost that same kind of energy. Only like
Yeah.
there's stuff happening here.
Yeah,
a
I'm
little
always
bit more.
saying with people, is it like this? Is it like this? And you know, an hour out of Toronto all the time. It's phenomenal how many good bands there are. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's
You
just-
got any plans on going back out west?
No, like I want to go out and visit. It was weird because the last time I went out, it was to go to my buddy, one of my best friends, his birthday, and it was the first time going back. His brother picked me up at the airport. We drove up, and his mom's place is like a 10-minute walk from my parents' place, but they had sold it, and so it was so strange. My mom was talking about feeling erased a bit. And I thought, oh, you're being a bit of a baby, you know, without like saying it, but thinking
Right.
that. But when I got, you know, down close to the house, I'm like, oh, I see what she means. Like the house was demolished.
Right.
Another one is gone, was almost all the way up, and felt so strange. And then North Van, you know, in the North Shore is such a beautiful place, but it's gotten so frickin' expensive
Right.
that everyone who can stay has moved out further away, and so then I'm staying out at my buddies and sleeping on the couch, and I didn't have a car to try, so it felt
Right.
really odd, but I love it out there. So every time I go out there, I kind of fantasize about living there again.
Right.
But it's like most of my art schooling was out here, and then my life and the creative people and most of the places I've been showing, so I just would like to go back and visit more.
Do you have enough perspective to be able to sort of give a comparison about what the people in life are like here versus what the people in life are like there?
I don't know if it's all changed so much. Like it used to, you know, people would paint West Coasters as more casual and more hippie and more in Birkenstocks and track pants, and like people would stop for you at, you know, at like crosswalks. But I don't think there's, for me, I don't think there's that big of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I don't. And again, I went back in January just for 4 days, and it was the first time probably in like 3 years.
Right.
So I feel a bit out of touch,
Yeah.
to be honest. And I guess it depends what part of West and East.
And you're also
comparing.
sort of now comparing different decades rather than different areas, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I was in high school in the 80s. So, you know, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if it's that. I mean, it's so beautiful out there,
Yeah.
and the hiking and the nature, and I think if
You
people,
got a
maybe
lot of
people
that
are-
in this region, though, too,
Well, that's
right?
what I think too. Like a couple of my best friends, I hang out with Anthony Sweet, who you're going to see later today.
Yeah.
Who's one of the coolest cats around, and then our friend Lauren, and we go in nature all the time.
Right.
There's a place, the dry docks, and you can go to the mouth of the canal and you walk down a path, and you can go down by the water in this beautiful little path and end up around. It's so beautiful. Like he'll go do walking that thing at the middle of the night just on his own.
Right.
And so some of the time I'll end up at night down there with him, or Lauren will go, or we'll all go, and we'll sit out there and we'll meditate and stuff, and we'll go to the short hills. All of the Fat Moth dudes and we're out in short hills like way late at all day, and there's some beautiful places around here. Or over in the falls, there's the falls, which are amazing, but you get all the tourism. But you go down to the gorge, and you can go down the wooden staircase or the metal, and you can get all lost down there for a long time. Or like the wooden staircase is so cool because you can truck down and back in like 25 minutes.
Okay.
And hit the water.
Right.
And this is a lot of great nature around here.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Man. Tell me about, we're coming to the end here. If people want to find out more about you, more about your work, see some of your work, let them know where they can find you, man, because this stuff is so beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
We didn't even really talk about your art, but I don't really talk about the music with musicians either. I told you when we first got in here, I've seen a variation of the style that you do, but I have never seen anything like your work, and it is the most stunning, some of the most stunning stuff I've ever been in the same room with. I really appreciate it. How can people find you, man?
Well, my website is Geoff-Farnsworth.com, so Geoff, Farnsworth.com, but you can just Google search me, and then I got links on there. I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
That's awesome, man.
Thanks for looking and coming up,
dude. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Eat more donuts.
Oh yeah, no, these things are all here.
Let's show you.
They have vegan donuts in this town.
Beechwood.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
there's a little plug. You can send us some.
Then you're gonna go to Rise Above too, because it's just incredible food, and you wouldn't even know it.
Sounds great.
But yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you so much.